Afternoon, massive strike action is underway at this hour right across South Africa. The country's largest unions, Cosatu and Saftu, are protesting against corruption, unemployment and gender-based violence. Workers have been encouraged to stay home today and adhere to COVID-19 regulations. Our reporters are on the ground following the story in Johannesburg. We have Aviwe Mtila in the CBD. Sipamandla Goge is tracking the strike for us in Pretoria. In Durban, Desentatya, and in Cape Town, Monique Mortlock is watching developments from outside Parliament. Let me start then in Pretoria. Sipamandla, good afternoon to you. Position yourself and tell us what you've seen today.
Behind me you can see that Cosatu President Zingiswalusi has just delivered a memorandum here to two ministers, Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula as well as Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi. Some of the demands here from workers or protesters, they include the abolishment of the e-tolls, but at the center of today's strike is the issue of the 2018 wage deal. This is a 3-year wage deal which was agreed upon between the employer, which is the government, as well as the labor federations. Now, for 2 years, government has honored the deal, paying wage increases, but now this year in 2020, they said they want that one nullified. They don't have money. That is an illegal deal. They want it reviewed and set aside. So they have not paid salaries as per April 2020. Now, workers are angry. Public servants want their money. They wanted Finance Minister Tito Mboweni to come here and accept the memorandum, but he's not here. Only two ministers are here. Since the morning, they've been marching throughout the CBD in Pretoria. They demand that they are paid their salaries. They demand that government must do something tangible to fight against corruption. They are also fighting against gender-based violence, and they demand that there must be an equal pay across all sectors, and they must close the gap when it comes to gender parity.
It is a long list of grievances. Let's head south now, and Aviwe Mtila in the Johannesburg CBD. Aviwe, good afternoon to you. What's the position that you're seeing today, and what have union representatives been telling you?
It is a declaration of war. Those are some of the sentiments shared by the General Secretary of Saftu, Zwelinzima Fabi, as he leads some of his members heading to the Premier's office now to hand over a memorandum. He joins me at this very moment. Mr. Fabi, thank you for joining us at eNCA, but do share some of your grievances.
We don't agree that a government must sign collective agreements with the unions and then jump out of it. If that was to be allowed, that will set us right back to the pre-Vienna Commission of 1979. It will spell a disaster for industrial relations in our country. Worst of all, when the government says there will be no wage agreement, there will be no wage increases for the public sector for the next 4 years until 2024. Meaning that the government is actually spitting on the face of the doctors, of the nurses, the policemen and women, the correctional services staff, and the general staff in the public service. We will not allow that, so we are marching to deliver the memorandum. The second issue that we are highlighting with the Premier is that our country has become a complete crime riven. We're picking almost 60 people every day in this country, people who are killed violently by criminals. Our criminal justice system is completely dysfunctional. The main victims of those people who are dying in our streets are women and children. They die, their bodies get dumped all over in the sugar canes, even alongside our highways. Our children are being raped and killed. We have had enough of that. We want a functional criminal justice system. And thirdly, we are going to demand that the trains be made available. Workers are suffering. They are paying far more than they will be paying if trains were operational. We want the network that they've allowed to be vandalized to be reinstated as soon as possible. We are not allowing the government to just say we're going to drive the next development strategy through infrastructure when they are allowing the current infrastructure to be completely destroyed.
Thank you very much. The General Secretary of Saftu basically declaring war against government as they hand over to the Premier's office to hand over a memorandum with some of the demands that you heard there, Jeremy.
All right, Viwe Mtila, in the Johannesburg CBD, little evidence of masks and social distancing. That is of concern. I want to take you live now to Cape Town, watching developments from outside Parliament. As I mentioned a moment or two ago, Monique Mortlach, good afternoon to you. What have you been seeing today?
Yes, good afternoon. The crowd has dispersed here in front of Parliament, where earlier there were about 300 to 400 members of various unions standing outside of Parliament, preparing to hand over a memorandum to a member of Parliament. Here's now just a handful of stragglers. Deputy Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, John Jeffrey, he was here to accept that memorandum on behalf of Parliament. The unions have said they've given all of the different spheres of government, that's the City of Cape Town, Western Cape Government and National Government, they've given them 14 days to respond to their demands, and some of those demands include the regulation and the subsidizing of the taxi industry. They're also calling for the speedy and efficient prosecution of corrupt government officials, and not only in national government, but they emphasize local government officials who are found guilty of corruption. They should also be prosecuted swiftly. When we were at the provincial legislature, we heard from the Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Windy, that he's taking these demands seriously, especially those related to the unemployment rates. He mentioned that over 320,000 jobs were lost since the start of the pandemic, and this is something that he is taking very seriously, and he has promised to answer those demands within the stipulated 14 days. So it seems the unions are satisfied with how today went. I have checked in with the different sectors, health sector and education sector, whether there was any disruption due to the strike action. Apparently it was business as usual. There seems to have been minimal to no disruption in these activities in these specific sectors.
Monique Mortlach, outside Parliament, thank you. Live now to Durban, eNCA senior reporter Desan Tatia, good afternoon to you. I hope that we have established a link with you. What have you been seeing today? What can you tell us?
Well, Jeremy, it took a while to get the wheels moving, but eventually there is some movement now. Just take a look behind me. These are some of the protesters that had gathered at Curry's Fountain. They are now moving towards the CBD. We understand protesting in the CBD. There's expected to be some disruptions there. Now, one of the things that I this fairly complicated was that they were waiting for other members of Cosatu to come in from the north KZN to meet these protesters, but the delay there was those protesters were slowing down traffic on the freeways into Durban. So as it stands, we're not sure why this changed at the last minute, because we were told that a motorcade was chosen because of the COVID-19 regulations that are in place. But from the looks of it, this looks like any other protest or strike that we've seen in the past.
All right, Desan Tatia in Durban, thank you very much indeed. We'll check in with all of you a little later this afternoon.